Hi, everyone. This is Sandy Alt reporting from the wild, and this is the audio podcast companion to my blog on Substack. This is episode 23, Democracy's Blue Light Special. Let's say you're at the market. You hear a crackling sound from the PA system. A voice announces,
"Attention shoppers, we have a blue light special that you won't want to miss. Today only, you can get a real democracy. That's right, a democracy where all are equal, where everyone votes and every vote counts, where a billionaire con man or oligarch or their money won't have any more sway than you do, and where the government serves the people, works to better your life, protect your resources, and will increase your abundance and wellness. Act fast, as a deal like this won't be available long."
This is truly a bargain, no matter the price, because we don't have a democracy here in the USA today, and we haven't had a fully functioning one for I don't know how long, if ever. We have vowed to, aspired to, claimed to, tried to, and maybe even come close to at times. But then a dark force of fiends decided to move, covertly at first, and then more overtly, to destroy what we had and screw in something else in its place. Something with no room for equality, where a dictator and a caste of oligarchs would rule over all others, where only white skins mattered and penises prevailed, and where the ruling class held the disposable income and wealth, and the rest of us became disposable. And it turns out that a slim plurality of voters wanted all that and worse. The rest of us, not so much. So now we're all living together in this country, and we, the people, don't have the same goals, values, morals, or ideals. What we do have is irreconcilable differences. So, politically speaking, I've been thinking about divorce. A quick look at our history reveals that the United States of America has seldom, if ever, been united at all. In one of her recent letters from an American posts, esteemed historian Heather Cox Richardson begins with the oaf in the Oval Office's recent abhorrent bleat that the Smithsonian Institution focuses too much on how bad slavery was. And she concludes this is the logical outcome of the political ideology that created MAGA. HCR goes on to trace, from our beginnings as a republic, the supremacists' campaign to keep human beings as chattel and to vigorously and deliberately disenfranchise them from their rights. HCR also notes that women have been and are now in the same right-wing crosshairs as people of color. We are, I think, past the point at which any wise counselor would suggest therapy, a new hobby, or talking to one another more. We are at the point where there is broken trust, betrayal, repeated financial and personal damage, and the immediate threat of domestic violence. One side has no intention of honoring or rejoining with the other. Its will is to control and perhaps even eliminate the other. Under these conditions, only a fool throws money the way of therapy. You aren't likely to talk out your differences when someone you once thought your ally ignores all previous agreements and sets about stealing your assets, removing your means, depriving you of resources, controlling your freedom to move about, learn, speak, and thrive, and begins burning down your house with you in it. Let's assume you're ready to accept that we can't go on like this. We, the decent and democratic, are going to end up with no rights at all if we don't move to protect whatever we can now. The other side put a regime in power that is taking our freedom by aiming the military at us in our own home, taking over cities, cutting off our benefits, restricting our access, controlling the media and flooding it with lies, investigating and incarcerating more and more of us, violating our rights and privacies, robbing us of justice, and deploying goon squads to police and persecute us without legitimate predicate or due process.
In his excellent article in Salon, We Need a New Theory of Democracy, Mike Lufgren breaks down all the conjecture about why a rough majority of voters went to Trump and MAGA in the 2024 presidential elections. From ignorance and apathy to brainwashing by lies to craving to be entertained. And he arrives at the conclusion that it is more likely willful, conscious, and knowing support of Trump than any other premise.
If Lofgren is right, that makes about half of us in this country irremediably incompatible with the other half. To think otherwise is to ignore the history that Heather Cox Richardson so deftly recounts. We have always been divided over the most basic issue of all, whether we are equal and each deserve the same rights and freedoms as the other. For the length and breadth of this great experiment, a remarkably large faction of us fails to embrace the tenet that every one of us is entitled to the same standing or liberties. With force, even with war, those of us who do believe in equality have won the day, but we have not rooted out the evil. It has lurked and lingered despite our best attempts and erupted again as soon as the inveigling incubus with spray-painted skin and fiberglass stuck on his scalp came down the escalator, honking his horrible horn of hate, of xenophobia and race-baiting, of sexism and self-obsession, a man who inconceivably hexed the people by verbally masturbating in public all the time about himself while spouting savagery and ludicrous lies. How can we not want out? Why would we choose to endure this and those who created this, who put us here, for another moment? If someone with angelic tendencies still wants to work to patch it up between us, I submit that said ship has sailed.
We democracy devotees failed to take advantage of a couple of blue light specials that might have preserved self-governance and given us more time to heal the divisions or decide the dividings. Both instances involved putting a woman in power, and there was no way this country, with its deeply entrenched misogyny, bigotry, and racism, and its advancing addiction to spectacle, conspiracy theories, and anger, was going to do that.
In 2016, we could have elected the supremely qualified and experienced Hillary Clinton, who won the popular vote by nearly 3 million, but was denied the victory because the Republicans have been breaking down the one-person, one-vote system since it was first envisioned. They and their minions have, since the Civil War, ensured that the popular vote is not necessary to install minority rule. And this has proved quite handy for the racist Republican Party's presidential candidates, including Trump's first term.
The second blue light special we missed would have put a well-qualified woman of color, Kamala Harris, in the Oval Office. And here we can't miss the obvious decline in fidelity to democracy. More Americans wanted a repeat of the insurrection candidate than could stomach letting a smart, experienced, wise woman lead. A woman who was part of an administration that had just proven what wonderful things government can do for the people. Resurrect an ailing nation from the injuries of a global pandemic. Reinstate strong diplomacy with our valued allies. Recover our economy fastest and best in the world from post-pandemic inflation. Build infrastructure that would take us into the future and bring children and the poor out of poverty. Nope. The plurality of voters were not buying that.
And I can't help but note the anniversary of the certification of the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which gave women the right to vote. We celebrate that victory for equality with mouths agape at the audacity of repeat offender Hogsloth, the predator potentate's hand-picked Secretary of Offense, and his Christo-fascist chums' open calls for denying women the right to vote. And/or the right to any right. Just stick a pin in that as we equality advocates consider what we might want to do next. If you're with me on exploring the possibility of a DSA equals Divided States of America, let me suggest a little more light reading. In his post, I researched every attempt to stop fascism in history. Chris Armitage explores 4 ways our counterparts in history have addressed the reality we face. None of them is a blue light special for democracy, though they hint at some things that could be. Armitage gets much closer to some settlement options for a quasi-split with his article, Deport Republicans, A Practical Guide. Here, he talks about economic deportation, insisting that blue states, which subsidize red states with hundreds of billions of dollars annually, stop, quote, funding their own oppression, end quote. He goes on to highlight how the other side employs a strategy to confound and overwhelm the courts, thus producing procedural delays so they can continue to do what they want, despite repeatedly losing their cases. Armitage suggests that blue states start playing by those rules too. In short, there are ways we can stop the abuse and get ourselves together to exercise the power we have.
Coordinating in policy, diplomacy, and economy, and united in their shared values and devotion to democracy, blue states would become a force to be reckoned with. Together, they could starve the federal coffers while overwhelming the dark regime with slow-walking, court-suing, inepting, and don't-doing, while also building diplomatic and economic global alliances of their own. This means governors of blue states must step into the breach and lead the sane and ethical people to a new democratic independence from the tyranny of the Trump Project 25 regime.
Some of this is happening already. California and Denmark are set to sign a partnership for climate action, which includes trade. Illinois just guaranteed students in public colleges and universities on-campus access to contraception and medication abortion. Washington's Governor Ferguson robustly rejected Barbie Bondi's demands to end sanctuary policies with a steaming speech, and his state is suing the planet-killing plutocracy for withholding funding to combat climate change. Maryland's Governor Wes Moore fired back at Thor Trump about his insults and threats to Baltimore, challenging the decaying demagogue to walk the streets of Baltimore with him so he can show the city's efforts to curb crime. Minnesota guaranteed children free meals at school. Colorado signed reproductive rights into law. New Mexico refused to participate in the cruelty regime's deportation plans.
Let me pause for a moment now to offer my customary tale from the wild that by analogy offers an insight to where we find ourselves today. Let's go way back to when this land was truly wild. Not a country, but a continent. A continent occupied by millions of indigenous people in 1,000 different tribes. When white Europeans first came to the shores of North America, the natives failed to act on opportunities which could have altered the trajectory of their future almost unimaginably. And no judgment, of course, because we can relate. We find ourselves in similar circumstances with the formidable and never-ending barrage of assaults we now suffer. Imagine the original inhabitants' dismay when people with ill intent, superior technology, mean-spiritedness, white supremacy, a self-assumed mandate from their god, and an astonishing arsenal of fatal diseases advanced on them and metastasized across what we now call North America. Who wouldn't fail to act in all the appropriate ways? However, with respect to the many missed opportunities, historians agree that the one that cost the indigenous inhabitants most dearly was their failure to create a united front against the invasion that included genocide, theft, savagery, slavery, child trafficking and programming, and near cultural erasure. The original people of this continent could have banded together to fight and to negotiate regarding their considerable resources. They might not have prevented the invasion altogether, but this would have greatly improved the outcome. The Iroquois Confederacy mastered some skill at this when the first wave of white thieves and savages arrived. Had they widened their front and included more tribes, had other bands of native people, like the Northern Plains tribes, put aside their differences with one another and become allies against the onslaught of inhumanity arriving daily on the land, they might have bartered better results, lost less, saved more of their members' lives, and kept some of their territory, enriching themselves through trade in collective bargaining groups. Instead, missing this opportunity, they nearly became extinct, and their way of life with them.
You don't have to strain too hard here to see the parallel. A divided populace serves the swindlers, the gangsters, the plunderers, and rapists, allowing them to seize everything while we squabble among ourselves. And yet, we do have some pretty powerful tribes among the blue states alone, with abundant riches, resources, and power. Add to that, we who want democracy number almost as many as the hidebound hateful who crown this tyranny.
So don't miss Democracy's Blue Light specials. Some are already going on now.
In his Do Not Come to Chicago speech, Governor J.B. Pritzker called upon his fellow blue state governors to unite and resist the Oval Office authoritarians' requests to deploy their own National Guard units to Illinois. This was a powerful declaration of intent. Pritzker told the American public that he was sounding the alarm. He told Chicagoans to peacefully resist. This is a blue light special, and to pass it up would cause severe non-buyer's remorse for all defenders of democracy, and especially those in blue states that could bolster Illinois in its defense against the threat of invasion.
Governor Gavin Newsom responded to Texas redistricting election homicide legislation with a People's Choice Blue Light Special for democracy. This gave California's voters the chance to negate Governor Abbott's Kill Democracy spree, and they responded. Now the Texans, who kissed Trump's backside at great cost to their constituents, must simply swallow sewage and gain nothing.
What could prevent success? One possibility: we might self-sabotage our own intentions by holding out for the perfect time, the perfect reason, the elusive perfect opportunity, one that promises a sure win, the perfect party, the perfect leader. Voltaire wrote, "Le mieux est l'ennemi du bien." The best is the enemy of the good. All artists know the paralysis of pursuing perfection, but rock and rollers in the band Nazareth offered a new scale that allows for perfect, but doesn't require it. Close enough for rock and roll. So, democracy rockers, let's not allow the urge for perfection to keep us from playing.
Perhaps the greater deterrence to the amicable restoration of democracy's peace, prosperity, equality, justice, and freedom to the lives of those of us who want it comes from the other side of the arena, where they are currently setting up for Thunderdome. It could be the evil empire's ever-escalating force multiplier strategies, like creating a rapid response armed against Americans' brigade of brigands within the National Guard, or deploying the more than immoral, fully funded new black shirts from the ICE Homeland Cruelty demons to hunt down the homegrowns, as the rotting prop behind the Resolute desk calls us. This, or more crackdowns on fed-up citizens, could lead to a dreaded repeat of Kent's state.
But remember, Pritzker called on us to demonstrate peacefully. And when he said it, he exuded might. Pray we all do the same, show great power peacefully. Peaceful does not mean weak. It can be strength, innovation, relentlessness, cleverness, and courage.
Today, our Blue Light Special for Democracy is bravery, which is already on display from blue state governors, attorneys general, secretaries of state, and more. Bravery from a Texas congresswoman who refused to sign away her rights and was held captive in the chamber. Bravery from the Democrats in Congress who demand to inspect ICE detention centers. Bravery shown by those telling the truth, taking this tyrannical regime to court, reporting honestly, and answering the call. This deal can't last forever. The window closes a little, or a lot, more every day. So we have to join with like-minded folks, stand by those who are standing up, who are showing strength, who are resisting and speaking out and protecting the rights and resources they can. Because we may not be all the people, but we are the ones who want democracy. We want better health care instead of more billionaires. We want liberty over detention and concentration camps. We want education over indoctrination. We want science over propaganda. We want clean air and water and our beautiful natural resources to be protected, not exploited. And we want dignity, fairness, and competence instead of corruption and control. We want, as Abraham Lincoln described in the Gettysburg Address, that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
We may never persuade the people in this country who prefer the cruelty and corruption, the hatred and indecency, the lies and persecution, and the spectacle they voted for. But I'm betting that the decent and good among us just can't agree to go on living like that. As this authoritarian regime rolls out more and more tyranny takeover tactics, the next Blue Light Special could be the last. I hope we don't miss it. It might be the means of getting from here to where we want to be. A republic, if we can keep it. This has been Sandy Alt reporting from the wild. Every week or so, I publish a written blog on Substack, and then a few days after, I produce a podcast version like this one. You can read and subscribe to the companion blog to this podcast on Substack at sandyalt.substack.com. There, you'll find links to the media I reference here and a photo of a Plains Indian-style elk-hide blanket bag I made with a burned-in map of the indigenous tribal territories as recorded in 1850. My grateful thanks to the rocking crew of democracy defenders who provided voiceovers and editorial support for this podcast. The great Michael Clarkson, T. Kearns, Stephanie Currington, Tim Currington, and Sheila Allred from our all-star voiceover team, and the prodigious podcaster Channy Peters for lending their wonderful voices to this project. And of course, our dedicated and discerning content development team, Teresa Daus-Weber and Eric Brody, for their help in refining the script. You can read Eric's blog on Substack at Decency and Sense. And if you want more stories from the wild, look for my Wild Mystery series. You can start with any book in the series and go wild.